And I like how in the book you address this line that so many of us heard, living there all the time, that Hong Kong was becoming just another mainland city. And you say that's the wrong frame for that question. Why is that the case? Why is this crackdown in Hong Kong more concerning than just to the 7.5 million people, though fewer every day, who live there? Why is it not just becoming another mainland city?
I think there are two, if I can answer that in two parts. The first thing is you would rather be in Beijing or Shanghai right now because you know what the rules are, the red lines, things are pretty clear. In Hong Kong, the lines as to what's going to literally get you thrown in jail with no prospect of bail are unclear from day to day. I mean, we had a protester thrown in jail a week or so ago because he was thinking or planning a one-man protest against the Olympics. We've had a speech therapist who's been sitting in jail for the better part of a year because she was involved with a children's book that had wolves and sheep. And I guess that was somehow against national security or sedition or something, but she's in jail on national security law charges. So nobody really knows what the rules are in Hong Kong. So I think it's worse than almost any mainland city, with the exception of cities in Xinjiang and Tibet. And I think we have to think of Hong Kong. I think Beijing views Hong Kong through a frame of peripheral region full of troublemakers. And think about it. What's on the periphery? Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong. They're far away. And they caused a lot of trouble for China. And so rather than trying to mollify them or work with people, I mean, the thing seems to be kind of strike hard and kind of just keep whacking them till there's nothing left. Now, the broader question, I think, why does this matter to the rest of the world? I think China's willingness to destroy a place like Hong Kong that, honestly, what threat did Hong Kong pose to China? I mean, what did Hong Kong do?
You're saying what military threat?
Yeah, or what threat was Hong Kong really seriously going to become independent? I mean, Jiang Zemin famously said they were worried after 1989 that the Hong Kong spirit of liberty and freedom would spill over to the mainland. I mean, that clearly wasn't happening. But every time there's any kind of demonstration, the guys in Beijing seem to see color revolution, and they were obviously seared by the collapse of the Soviet Union, Arab Spring, some of the things that have happened in Central Asia, and so they just have to whack down any kind of uprising. But I think the bigger point is what China did in Hong Kong is the kind of thing it's trying to do in Lithuania today. It's trying to do with Australia, that it's done with South Korea, with the Philippines. I mean, country after country that steps out of line as far as China is concerned. And of course, we can talk about Taiwan is going to be whacked and hit hard. And the Chinese are, seemingly picking quarrels, to use their language, with a variety of places, and just, I think, using a degree of coercion and trying to limit the ability of those of us in the free world or open societies to be able to just have discussions like this. If China had their way, we wouldn't be having this discussion. As a matter of fact, technically, they could probably, they say the national security law applies everywhere. And if they wanted to, Jodi, they could come after you and me, according to their way of thinking.
Great. Well, we're getting some questions in, and they're dealing with the second part. I'll show the book. People haven't seen it. The second part is Today, Hong Kong, Tomorrow, the World. And we have Bill Hosting, who's asking, what did the People's Republic of China learn in crushing Hong Kong that they intend to apply to the world? So he's getting to the second part of the title of your book.
Well, I think unremitting pressure, but thanks, Bill. It's a really good question. But again, I think we're seeing this playbook, let's say Lithuania. They try to co-opt certain parts of also Africa. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that before. They will co-opt certain parts of the elite with business favors. They will try to control the media as much as possible, and they will essentially try to raise the pain threshold for anybody who goes against them.
And Paula Dwyer asks kind of a similar related question about the Tomorrow the World part. She's saying Taiwan may well be next, but where else might China strike?
Well, I think it's less than, thanks, Paula. It's a really good question. Look, clearly, the ability to have the People's Liberation Army in Hong Kong, and I think they would eventually hope in Taiwan, is different. I don't think we're going to see PLA troops around the world. I don't think that, even places like the Philippines or say Cambodia, which is almost a colony of China now, is likely to have troops. So again, I think that they'll work through elites, work through media, and above all, work through the kind of united front organizations that we see even here in the US and in London.
And one more question before from the audience before we return to mine is, how near is Hong Kong today to an international commercial collapse? Is there precedent for that sort of decline? Beirut is
that's very, yeah, that's funny. I don't know why I'd never thought of the Beirut example. It's very hard to destroy international financial centers. And I've looked at some of the research and some of the work that's been done on this, and had discussions with people who a couple of years ago were much more optimistic than I was. Look, business can live with pretty draconian laws. If you have a financial center, you've got a kind of almost a first mover advantage, and it's hard to dislodge. But the combination of the national security law and the pandemic shows that China's really giving that thesis a run for its money. And it is interesting to think about Beirut because, of course, they're with civil conflict there, and that's, I guess, sort of the case in Hong Kong. I mean, we don't have a civil war, but you've got this deep civil conflict. But above all, you have a pandemic, which makes it impossible to travel. So, I mean, Cathay Pacific has effectively been destroyed. You had 60 million plus visitors in 2018. I don't think there are 60,000 this year. It might be closer to 6,000. So you have entire swaths of the economy that are being wiped out. You have, I just saw Pernod Ricard is asking its senior employees to move out of Hong Kong because they can't service the region internationally from there. People were in Hong Kong because you could be anywhere in the region and you could be in China. All those borders are closed right now, so nobody can really work. I guess capital can still flow, of course, but I don't know if it's locked down for another year or so, which seems to be the thinking. And it might be even a more severe lockdown. They're talking in recent days that we might see a Wuhan-style lockdown in Hong Kong where people actually can't leave their flats. So it just seems hard to imagine with that kind of grinding shutdown that Hong Kong's going to just bounce back and become vibrant all of a sudden next year again.